Hello dear learners. And welcome to this series of e-learning lectures, aimed at developing your knowledge and skills in the area of didactics and pedagogy. This is lecture number 10. The Communicative Language Teaching Method. By the end of this lecture, learners will be able to define the principles of the communicative language teaching method. Identify the typical techniques of the communicative language teaching lesson. Know the advantages and shortcomings of the communicative language teaching method. But, before we move forwards, if you have not been here before, then, welcome to UNIV-ENGLISH channel. If you do like videos like this, then make sure to hit the subscribe button. And also smash the notification bell to receive notifications of when I produce more videos like this. Also, let me know down the comments. What are the difficulties you are facing right now? So, I can use your ideas for future videos. Introduction. Communicative language teaching was developed in the era of revolutions in British language teaching traditions from the late 1960s. Situational language teaching was the norm in Britain before communicative language teaching was adopted. The communicative method was actually developed in opposition to the audio-lingual method that emphasizes drilling and memorization. The goal of communicative language teaching is to develop communication skills in learners' real-life situations. Richards and Rogers, 2001, maintain that meaning is more important than accuracy. The communicative language teaching curriculum was developed by experts at the Council of Europe in the 1970s. It was primarily designed to meet the needs of adult learners, tourists or people engaged in academic, cultural, technical or economic activities. However, it can be traced back to the work of Chomsky in the 1960s when he advanced the two notions of competence and performance as a reaction to the prevalent audio-lingual method and its view on language learning. Definition. Littlewood, 1981, page 1. Explains that one of the most characteristic features of communicative language teaching is that it pays systematic attention to functional as well as structural aspects of language, combining these into a more fully communicative view. Communicative competence includes the ability not only to apply the grammatical rules of a language to form grammatically correct sentences, but also to know when and where to use these sentences and to whom. Jack C. Richards, 2001. Himes' definition of communicative competence, 1972, considers a person who acquires communicative competence acquires both knowledge and ability for language use. Many writers have contributed to the definition of the concept of communicative competence. They have proposed 7 categories of communicative functions that are requesting and giving information, expressing thought processes, expressing opinions, moral discipline and evaluation, modifying people's behavior, expressing personal feelings and interacting socially. Under each of these categories, there are many notions. Other categories have also been identified to facilitate interaction between speakers from the first lesson of learning the foreign language. The focus of this method is to enable the learner to communicate effectively and appropriately in the various situations he or she would be likely to find him or herself in. CELT courses are composed of functions such as invitations, suggestions, and complaints, as well as notions such as the expression of time, quantity, and location. Principles and characteristics of the communicative method. The communicative method focuses on teaching foreign languages in the classroom in a way that allows students to communicate in a conscious way, taking their real-life experiences into consideration. Communication-based language teaching involves bringing real-life scenarios into the classroom. Students are exposed to situations that necessitate communication. Meanwhile, teachers listen more and talk less, being active facilitators of their students' learning. The communicative method is based on the following basic principles. The communicative method focuses on language as a medium of communication. Recognizes that all communication has a social purpose, the learner wants to be understood and to understand. New syllabuses based on the communicative method offered some communicative ability from an early stage. Graded objectives in modern languages, a movement which flourished in the 1970s and 80s, raised pupils' motivation through short-term objectives and through teaching language appropriate to a range of relevant topics and situations, for example shopping, hobbies, exchanges, etc. Real-life authentic language should be exploited in the classroom. In the past, languages were taught in a vacuum, language for the sake of language passing exams, rather than language for true communication. Language is not only a medium of communication, i.e., practicing how to say it in the language but with no added purpose, but also a message, that is language for true purposes of sending and receiving messages. The communicative language teaching method aims to personalize and customize language and adapt it to the learner's interests. Meaningful language always helps learners retain information better. Communication embraces a whole spectrum of functions, for example asking for information, apologizing, expressing satisfaction and dislike, and notions, for example running late or asking for the postal address. Classroom activities maximize opportunities for learners to use the target language in a communicative way for meaningful activities. The classroom should provide opportunities for the rehearsal of real-life situations and provide the opportunity for real communication. The importance of oral work. In the classroom, students are taught to listen and speak clearly. The contact time with the language is essential. It helps an individual to easily master the language facility and express thoughts and ideas without difficulty. Students need to have direct contact with teachers, practice a variety of sounds and get a chance to make mistakes and learn from them. Reading and writing skills need to be developed to promote pupils' confidence in all 4 skill areas. By using elements encountered in a variety of ways, reading, summarizing, translating, discussion, debates, makes language more fluid and pupils' manipulation of language more fluent. Classroom materials. The communicative method language learning is supported by a wide range of materials. The practitioners of communicative language teaching view classroom materials as tools to influence classroom interaction and language use. The primary role of materials is to promote communicative language use. Currently, the communicative method language uses 3 types of materials, namely text-based, task-based, and realia. Text-based, including exercises, reading passages, gap fills, recordings. Task-based, game boards, role-play cards, materials for drilling, pair work tasks. Realia, periodical publications, newspapers, fruit and vegetables, animals, maps. The communicative method calls for the use of real, from-life materials in class. These include signs, magazines, advertisements, newspapers, pictures, symbols. The teacher role. In the classroom, the teacher has 2 main responsibilities. The first is to facilitate the process of communication between students and various activities and texts. The second role is to participate independently within the learning teaching group. It is the teacher's responsibility to identify a learner's language needs and address them. This may be done informally and personally through one-to-one sessions with students. The teacher asks about the student's perception of his or her learning style, learning assets, and learning goals. The communicative teaching procedures typically require teachers to acquire less teacher-centered classroom management skills. It is the teacher's responsibility to arrange the classroom as a setting for communication and communicative activities. Besides, an individual's motivation for studying a language is determined by the needs assessment instrument administered by the communicative method language teacher. Based on needs assessment results, CLT teacher plan instruction and activities that respond to learners' needs. Following the communicative teaching method, teachers' main role are as follow. Facilitate interactive communicative opportunities. To monitor performance and offer feedback. To use authentic materials. To emphasize function over form. To promote all language skills from the beginning. The student role. Students play a pivotal role in the teaching-learning situation to align with the communicative method. Among the learner's practices: 1. The ability to understand the grammar and vocabulary of a language. 2. The ability to apply the potential communicative approach or understanding of the function. 3. Interpret the meaning of the forms in relation to their functions. 4. Should contribute as much as he gains, and learn in an interdependent way. 5. Learners are expected to interact primarily with each other rather than with the teacher. 6. Students give and receive information. Role refers to the part that learners and teachers are expected to play in the learning tasks as well as the social and interpersonal relationships between the participants. Noonan, 1986, page 79. Advantages: personalize and localize language in order to suit students' interests. It is always easier for learners to remember meaningful language. Use of authentic resources, which is more interesting and more motivating for children. The use of grammar rules as a necessity to speak so is more proficient and more efficient. The communicative teaching method prioritizes communication as an instrument of instruction. Support a variety of classroom procedures required to make the participants realize the function of language. Disadvantages: it fails to take into account the context in which teaching and learning occurs. The communicative language teaching often tends to be interpreted as, if the teacher understands the student, we have good communication, but native speakers of the target language can have great difficulty understanding students. Focuses on fluency but not accuracy. It does not focus on error reduction. Instead, it creates situations where learners are left using their own devices to solve their communication problems. Accordingly, they may produce incoherent, grammatically incorrect sentences. Conclusion: communicative language teaching is an overarching approach that theoretically and practically informs a range of language teaching methods and practices, with a central focus on the communicative aspect of language. The communicative teaching method prioritizes communication as an instrument to be used to teach a target language through oral interaction. It refers to a communicative view of language learning used to support a variety of classroom procedures. Language function is the core of the teaching-learning process. Contextualization is required to make the participants realize the function of language. Communicative language teaching emphasizes communication both as a desired goal and an effective process of learning. Students learn to use the appropriate language they need for communicating in real life.